Who are you?
Matthew Gideon, Captain. Attached to the Earth Alliance starship Excalibur.
What do you want?
To find a cure to the Drakh plague before it wipes out all life on Earth.
Where are you going?
Anywhere I have to.
Who do you serve, and who do you trust?
Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season 6.5. Chatzylon 5 presents Crusade Chats. My name is Alan, and poking around here for so long, at this point the only thing that stinks is Magellan. But it's a nice stink. Hi, Magellan. Hello.
Hey, what's up? I got my fuel pipe, or not my fuel pipe, my waste pipe is a little
I can't
loose.
believe that there's an extended there's an extended zero payoff poop joke. Other than they open the pipe and it's just poop.
And it's just the only payoff is that there's like slurping sounds.
Yeah, which I can just do that. You don't even need a whole thing.
And it doesn't. There's no reason that it's like something smells bad because there's a wind thing, whatever. And we'll talk about it. But yeah,
we're gonna need some help talking about this though, because this episode is not a heavy one, but it's a reference heavy one. And who better to help us chart all these references and discuss them than a man who offends my very sense of honesty? It's Nick from the Brothers at Infinite War. Hello, Nick.
Oh, I feel honored and something else from that introduction.
And another adjective.
Another adjective. But thank you for having me back again, guys. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate the flexibility on the time there. I got hit with the flu there, so it just unfortunately was not chatsable, I guess, at the time.
It happens to the best of us, and it's all good. We were able to work around it and make something, I think, that'll be even more fun than what we originally had planned. So this week, continuing down our adventures through the TV show Crusade, we watched Visitors from Down the Street, which is JMS Order Episode 5, Broadcast Episode 12, Disc 3 if you're on the DVDs. And it was written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by JMS-approved. It aired August 25th, 1999, and it takes place from May 13th to the 14th of 2267. Before I ask you, Magellan, what happened in this episode, I want to say that I'm still listening. I've gone back to Becoming Superman, the JMS autobiography from last year.
Yeah.
And I finally am in like the second, going into the third major phase of his life where he lived a really rough childhood, and then he was in college, and then now he's in like him moving to LA. And he tells the story of why he calls himself, he starts writing it as J. Michael Straczynski. And it's fascinating.
What's the story?
Long story short, Straczynski is a name that he thinks a lot of people have trouble, he knows that a lot of people have trouble saying. And Michael is a more like familial, like nice, easy 3-syllable or 2-syllable name. And then, but Joseph Michael Straczynski is way too long for people to say. But he doesn't want to just say like Michael Straczynski because that's not his name. So he was like, this is the best way to include everything without shortening the important parts and with still making people like ready to. He basically says that as if like it requires warming up to say the word Straczynski.
Yeah. Well, even if he doesn't do Joseph, like the warm up is Joe. Okay, nice and short. Michael. Okay. Straczynski.
Yeah.
There's a mouth vomit of a word.
Right. And then J. Michael Straczynski is just really fun to say.
Flows pretty well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you know how to say it flows.
Nice on the tongue.
Right. Magellan, what happened in Visitors from Down the Street?
Well, in this episode, events take a lighthearted turn in the X-Files parody. The Excalibur takes aboard a pair of paranoid aliens convinced that humans interfered with their planet for decades and that their government conspired to hide the facts. Things get stranger when one of their leaders shows up and reveals that his government is intentionally faking alien intervention to pacify a naturally rebellious population. So, what did we think of Visitors from Down the Street?
Nick, you can go first. I know you have a bit more history with this one, having seen it more often. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. When Crusade was first on, I didn't get to see all the episodes, and so it was always, I knew there was more episodes I hadn't seen, but of the episodes that I did happen to see, this is the one that definitely I remembered the most, because it was it was very funny. Like, they just take a whole episode for this one kind of joke, and figure out how to make it work in universe in a weird way. So I like it. I think it's a funny one. I think whenever I've looked at people's comments online when they talk about Crusade, people will say, "Oh, that X-Files parody episode, that was pretty funny." Like, even if they're not so thrilled about the whole thing, they still people seem to have fun with this. And I mean, it was an episode made at pretty heights of X-Files popularity. X-Files started in September '93, so only a few months after the Babylon 5 pilot. It's funny because it's like, wow, it's the same month as Lois and Clark, and then I think I half a pilot chat suggested to you on the email. I said, hey, you should do Sequest DSV, because that was actually the same night as Lois and Clark. Then I realized that's not available anywhere than DVD, and so I said, never mind. But that was also that other big. It was that was the other big sci-fi event. Oh, this is a Steven Spielberg thing, but so it was. There's that 1993. A lot of things landed, including X-Files and Babylon 5, kind of in the same year. It was
and also me. I also landed in 1993.
I was always trying to figure out, you guys are around there. I knew it was the pilot. You're like we're not born, and then you get into the episodes, we're born. But so it definitely, the lighthearted episodes tend to stick better with you. I think that's part of the reason why maybe like the season 5 View from the Gallery episode, and it's a more light episode with the kind of the different episode you tend to remember more.
The unique one, a very special episode, right?
Very special episode. Some very important topics about conspiracies. Yeah.
True. Majan, what about you? What did you think of this one?
Once I was willing to, again, this is like a recurring thing with me for Crusade. Once I was willing to forget that I was watching a Babylon 5 spinoff and just accept that I was watching like a goofy sci-fi show that was doing sort of a serious X-Files thing in moments, but then like a deeply satirical X-Files thing most of the time, I enjoyed the experience of it. Yeah. And the second time I watched it, I was like, this is fine. And it actually, I don't know, I liked it more the second time, but I also didn't feel like watching it the second time, if that makes sense.
I actually don't think I gained like a ton of new information from the second watch, other than kind of piecing together the A to B to C of the plot. But it's really simple. It's so simple. I think that the ways that it is referencing X-Files some of them are really subtle. Some of them are just like not so subtle cigarettes, for example.
Yeah.
But the stuff that's subtle is like, the dynamics of the characters, and the fact that this is like the sort of subtle reference that I felt I was noticing. But Gideon and Matheson kind of serve a Mulder and Scully role in this episode, unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, I don't know, as sort of the secondary protagonist, because we have our aliens who are like clearly supposed to be our Mulder and Scully. What are their names? Because I love names, and I wrote these down somewhere. Durkani and Lissa. Which I think Durkani is supposed to be Duchovny.
Yeah.
I was reading that somewhere. They do a lot. They do cute things with names. They don't make it too obvious. Like Lissa has red braids in her alien hair, which is like, Gillian Anderson has red hair, or redding hair. And yeah, the X-Files stuff felt like really charming, but I think as a isolated episode, it does some good work for characterizing Gideon, especially by the ending where he's just like, I don't like conspiracies or anything that's like going above me. I like to be in control of my situation. And so he sends down like the information down to their planet, which I think is great. But some other stuff that they do that's very X-Files-y. They have location cards. I really just wish Crusade and like more shows did location cards. Am I weird in that thing?
Yeah, that That's specifically an X-Files
Yeah.
joke itself, right? Like, just because every
Yeah.
episode always blah blah blah, this location, this time. Yeah,
Mhm.
each all the time.
Yeah, when we were watching, have we said that our second half is?
Nope, we have not.
We've said what our second half. Oh, we haven't at all. Did we say last week?
No.
what we were
No,
going
what
to
we
do?
said was,
Or
I
no?
said was, you can probably guess what we're going to do. We can just tell you right now, we watched the X-Files pilot.
Yeah, in our second half of this episode, we're gonna do a pilot discussion of
Yeah.
it. Pretty exciting.
Okay.
When we watched the X-Files pilot, I noticed the location cards, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's nice." I think I had the same reaction that you had, Alan. Why not? Why not tell me where
What's
you
the
are?
downside to
I
that?
didn't notice it at all in
Well,
this
I mean,
episode.
between the title cards and like the one time that I'll say I think the music worked because it's different. Like that, this has got the film noir kind of style music mystery going on with it.
Yeah.
That this time it worked because they had specific direction. Like, okay, you need to do this style. Okay, I can do this style. You tell me no style, you get terrible. But this time I thought it was like, okay, that works. I feel like I'm in a, especially when it cuts to like the black and white flashback scenes. Yeah, that's very 1930s detective.
Right. And again, it's kind of hard to compare them or to not talk about them in comparison, but X-Files has amazing music, and listening to this composer try to do an X-Files riff is like kind of goofy. I think the music does most of the comedic heavy lifting in this episode, actually. Because it's very like it's the X-Files. It like feels like
yeah.
I don't want to sound too mean to the composer, but it's kind of like that video of like a recorder doing the Jurassic Park theme.
Oh.
It's going for that tone, at least. I don't know. That's how I felt about it.
When you said you weren't going to be mean to the composer, I really didn't think you were going to say anything mean. But that's
a little mean.
That was
I was gonna.
mean.
I would compare it as like, you got your Fruit Loops and your Cheerios, and then on the bottom shelf you got the no name brands. Like
It's this generic brand.
it's generic brands.
X-Files.
They're fine on a budget. It works. Hope you kids don't recognize the difference.
Yeah. I actually would like to read more about what Evan H. Chen is doing these days. I don't know. Like, he doesn't have a lot of credits anywhere.
Yeah, I couldn't find
still
anything.
music.
I think he just stopped doing it or something.
Yeah. But
Those Usenet
Yeah,
those
it's
Usenet
got-
messages
it has-
just destroyed him, and then he went away.
exactly, yeah. It's got personality. It's got character to it, which I think is a really good quality in the soundtrack. But yeah, less characterful is this episode opening on a fart joke. It's the Matheson and Gideon hour, to the point where this show, like, when it's like this in this episode, these are the characters from the Excalibur that you get to see. Nobody else exists. Like, Galen, not real. Darina, fake. Couldn't be true. Impossible. Tracy Scoggins doesn't even exist yet. Who is
It's
that?
fiction. Yeah.
I like
This
this.
is
I just
the-
assume that
She-
the doctor's in the med bay.
Nick-
That's where she's supposed to be.
Nick,
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Nick, I have a question. Is Tracy Scoggins on this show?
Yes, she is. Yeah, that's a totally valid
Okay.
question.
I
Yeah.
haven't.
Um,
I haven't seen even. A
I know,
moment
and
of
even
her,
and,
I'm
and even the
starting to
clips
doubt
of
it.
her that are in the credits. If you look at them, they're all like
Yeah.
nothing new. It's all like her throwing the grenade in the Soul Hunter movie. Like it's clips from Babylon 5.
Oh,
So
yeah.
understandably,
Oh God.
yeah, if you look carefully, that's where all the clips are from. There's nothing new in there. That being said, I want to say I think you're like 3 episodes away from the first one where she shows up in the JMS order.
Sure. You know what? I'm into it. As long as we know she is actually in it and we're not being this isn't a huge grift.
Well, the standard thing of like a mage and a thief class, I imagine they can both kind of hide in the sides and you can't see them, but they're there. It's just the doctors in the med bay, just working on trying to figure out a cure. She's like, I'm still working here, guys. What are you guys doing?
Right.
We're fixing a sewer problem.
And Matheson and Gideon are the two people who are like the closest thing to a John and Dargo, like the away team. Like these are the two guys who are gonna like go down to a plan or go into a situation like this.
Or I was going to even say like Sinclair and Garibaldi.
Yeah, definitely. It's like these are the people who pull the guns out and do stuff. But But yeah, we open on a fart joke where it's just Gideon being like, "No, you smell anything?" And then Matheson's like, "I don't smell anything." And then he's like, "But telepaths can smell everything." And he's I can't use my powers like that. I was in the pool. Yeah, Matheson playing deadpan to Gideon's like weird, chaotic comedy is a lot of fun. We talked about that in Wella Forever, but it also comes through in this one really well. We go into this weird reverse hostage situation. The ship that they find has some aliens on it who want to take a human being back to their home planet as proof. And while they're being questioned, Matheson uses his telepathy to make them release the hostage. Which, Matheson did a baddie.
No, because he actually clarified that. He says under the regs we're allowed to do projection in a life-threatening situation because he's not scanning. Projection,
not manipulation.
Exactly,
right?
He's not manipulating, not scanning. He's projecting, which is that's one of the things he gets a pass.
No, I haven't.
And it's like part of it is like finally we use his telepathy for something. Like he's so hamstrung that you're like, oh well, he kind of realized that guy in the previous episode where he was going on. The guy went on about Mozart. I could tell he knew he was going to die, and it's like, was that telepathy, or was I just looking at the guy going really sad? I think he knew she's going to die.
You seem bummed.
You seem bummed out. I don't need my telepathy to know that. So yeah, that one's definitely good. Although I still prefer the if you guys have ever seen What We Do in the Shadows and the your spaghetti turns into worms scene.
Oh boy,
that's still even better than Sunday Snakes on the Gun.
A friend of mine recently started watching the show and said it's fantastic. I'm actually interested.
There's what's the guy's name?
There's a Buffy thing in there.
There's
right?
a Buffy thing in there. Yeah, what's his name?
Or Buffy the movie.
The Buffy the movie, where the guy with the one arm dies there.
Love it.
He shows up.
Paul Rubens' character.
Paul Rubens, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually liked that conversation where Matheson is being like, yeah, telepaths can only work with you guys like because we have all these limitations, but again, projections are not manipulation, and so there's nothing, and it's in a hostage situation, so it's not that illegal.
Well, and their projections aren't scans, which is like the most important difference.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I really like just in terms of world building with telepaths, that we skipped the telepath wars part, because over and over again it's like, oh, the telepath wars, here they come, they're going to be a big thing, and now we don't have to spend time like watching that. We can just now get into the interesting aftermath of what does that do to this universe, and to see Matheson talk about like, well, I don't want to become another Psychor. It's in the span of only a couple years to see how the public opinion has changed, or maybe it was this way and has surfaced out of the shadows when it comes to the Psychor.
Right.
It's a cool world building piece.
And I feel like the biggest problem with having a telepath war is like, well, logistically, how do you even come to a ceasefire? How do you come to a peaceful solution when it's such a racially driven thing of like an extreme? And I think the easiest solution is don't show it, just tell it. And that's basically what JMS did. He's like, well, I can't possibly satisfy everybody in this story. Maybe he can't even figure it out, but you can just say, well, they came to a peaceful solution, and now there's no more Psychor. So I think he...
Yeah, I mean, the only way to show a telepath war that I think would be exciting would be to have it be like maybe like a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, just like people in boardrooms like threatening to scan each other, and then no one actually does any scanning, and it's just like, oh my god, the tension rising of that. But like, you don't want a battlefield of telepaths doing scans or whatever. That's not.
Yeah, how do you make that look cool?
Well, there's
exactly.
What was that movie there? Scanners.
Scanners.
The 1981 one where a guy's head explodes. I mean, you
don't have to show anything other than the noise and then pop the guy's head.
Yeah. So you could do that, but it will quickly get boring. Heads exploding, I guess.
We start getting some backstory about our agents here, who I'm just going to be referring to as the agents for a little while, because they're mostly spoken about in tandem.
You could call them Mulder and Scully if you want.
Or we could just call them Mulder and Scully.
Let's just do that.
We know who they are. There's like black and white phone call scenes where they're kind of like worrying about plans, and then we get their story a little bit in reverse, and then by the end we learn that basically the Mulder he's the skeptical, or he's the one who like believes that this conspiracy is happening, and believes that they're using the humans are invading their government. And he even says stuff like, "Oh, the outfit I'm wearing comes from your fashion designers, making you guys feel comfortable hiding them on our planet."
And he speaks.
It goes all the way down.
And he speaks English, which is because he in particular found recordings of it and made the effort to learn it on purpose. And I thought it was. Yeah. I thought it was sci-fi where they look like, the scan, their brain scans show that they actually have to put extra effort, so we know that it's not their native language. I thought that was clever.
I was going to say the same. I was going to say the same thing, that like that was a moment of technobabble where it felt more than exposition. It felt like, I don't know,
it just made sense.
It was telling us something about the characters, and it made sense, and it was just, it felt good and made me feel smart. That I was like, oh, the brainwaves are going, they are doing it. Cool.
Right? Yeah, they know English. He expects that, he thinks that the humans are invading his culture, society, and they have been for years and years. That they're in the government. This is the stuff that's just straight up like what Fox Mulder says about people. Is like, there's a conspiracy, no one believes me except this one person who takes me on faith. I think here's my problem, and here when we talk about X-Files, this will be so important. The relationship between Mulder and Scully as the skeptic.
I was just gonna say, same. You read my mind.
Yeah, you're kind of which one of us is the Mulder? Which one's the Scully? Magellan?
Well, let's talk about it in a second.
For sure, we have to.
Let's let people think about it.
Yeah, but the relationship is so important because you have to have one person being like, I don't believe anything you're saying, but it would make a lot of sense if what you were saying was true. Like, that would help me figure out the world in a really perfect way if what you were saying was true. But there's no way that my like heart and soul can believe it. The problem here is that our Scully kind of just believes him, and so it doesn't feel like their relationship is that.
It's rushed along because it's just like, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you before. Now I believe you. And,
right. It's like post X-Files.
Right, because we're seeing a moment where it doesn't make any character sense for her to possibly disbelieve him, because they're literally on the alien ship.
There's aliens in front of them. Yeah.
But that does totally remove. Now there's no dynamic between Mulder and Scully here. It's just Mulder is like doing his thing, and it makes them a little bit less interesting. I was sort of bummed out that she didn't have a lot to do, or that there wasn't a huge contrast that was drawn between them. And then the other thing that after watching the X-Files pilot, that I found, I didn't know what to think about it, but it's certainly different. The way that JMS chose to portray the Mulder character in X-Files, it seems like Mulder is just kind of curious to the extent that he can't help himself, and he like needs to know things.
Right.
But it doesn't seem, at least from at the beginning, like he has any sort of animosity towards paranormal entities or towards aliens. He's just like, seems like people are hiding something. I just gotta know.
It's my life's pursuit to just understand this, to be able to figure this out.
There is a motivating factor for Mulder at the beginning. He does mention in the pilot, but
I mean, the sister. Yeah,
the sister thing. Yeah, like that made it personal for him, that he wants to know what exactly happened to his sister.
But I think what Magellan's getting at more is like, he doesn't have this like, I need to figure it out and smash the government kind of thing. He still works for the FBI.
Yeah, he doesn't have this like, how dare you aliens, whereas the guy in this is like, how dare you humans interfere with our world, and
when I expose you, and I think it'll come crumbling down. Like, that's his idea.
Yeah.
And I think that makes more sense in like a Babylon 5 world, and it is a more tellable story in a single episode. But I just noticed that was like a shift that JMS had to make for the sake of this episode. and for the sake of it being this sort of neat conspiracy that he could tell and explain before the episode was done.
Right. It's fairly rushed because we don't have a whole show to hang out with these characters. But basically, our Mulder shows Gideon some evidence. We determined it's most likely a broken golf putter that he shows him, and they talk about this may be a tool for recreation or a weapon. And then Gideon says it could be used for either, depending on the situation.
Yeah, please email in to see if you guys agree that it's a putter. Or if you're...
Is it a putter or is it a riding crop? Is it like a whip?
That's what
okay, it is... So the scene is like Gideon is commenting on all these things that Mulder's bringing out and pieces of evidence. And
these are all references, by the way. But these are references to real-life conspiracies, interestingly enough.
It's a swamp gas. No, it's a blimp, you know.
Right. It's a weather balloon.
And this crude drawing...
Mount Rushmore is a trick of the light.
This crude drawing of aliens who had hair on their heads. Oh my gosh.
That was so. This is JMS at his cutest. He's trying very hard to be cute right now.
Yeah,
and
it's tied with the Elvis impersonators. I'll just put it out there.
True. Yeah, that's a very good point. And it was hard for me to tell whether I was supposed to be laughing out loud at certain parts, like when we'll get back to the thingy in a second, but when the guy leaves and Gideon is looking at one of the crop circle pictures, and it turns out that the crop circle is actually like a big American flag in the field. And it's like, what? Am I supposed to think that's funny? Because that's very funny. Yeah. That's just goof as hell. Okay, but we were arguing about this before the recording. One of the items is something that Mulder takes out, and he says, hey, this is some kind of weapon, and then or some kind of weapon or some sort of recreational device.
Yeah.
And then Gideon looks at it, and he says, oh, it's both. It could be both, depending on how the game goes. And I am convinced, because I'm right, that it's a golf putter that's slightly bent out of shape. And these gentlemen seem to think that it's some sort of a sexual situation.
Oh, okay. So Nick just sent us... Wow. So Nick just sent us a picture of a riding crop. First of all, riding crop does not have to be sexual, but based on the context, yeah, it does.
Well, yeah, because that's what he said. He said depends on how the game
we
goes.
were talking about it.
Yeah.
We were talking about it in the context of like Crusade is being horny again.
Yes.
But that doesn't make sense. That line doesn't work at all if that's what it is. It's a golf putter.
It's either a weapon, because it's a whip, basically, or it's a recreational device, because that's for your kinky time with your bed buddy.
But then what's the game?
The game is...
What's the game?
He's using that as a metaphor for something else because it's on TV.
I'm not convinced.
Okay, so Alan's gonna put up a poll.
This is an
He's gonna put up a poll later.
This is an Occam's razor.
Have the audience vote. What is the game?
Yeah, I won't even explain what the reference is. I'm just gonna say, what is the game? And it's gonna say sex or golf, and then we're gonna see what wins. But yeah, it's neither here nor there what it actually is. The point is, he has all this evidence, and Gideon is like, this is all Earth stuff. It's not evidence that you guys are victims of a conspiracy. It's evidence that you have Earth material. Like, Mount Rushmore exists. It's real. We've seen it. People have taken real pictures of it. Done. I'm willing to take you on faith if you really think your government is messed up. And as that's happening, we are introduced to my favorite character of this episode, Special Agent Kendar.
Oh, that man is chewing the scenery with glee.
He's delicious.
Yes.
He's got a fun accent, too. And he arrives on the ship because he is basically Mulder's like former boss. And he says that you guys going out of our like permitted space is considered a crime worthy of execution. I like this part where he kind of tries to logic humanity, because he's like, yeah, that's illegal. Like, what do you guys not have like things that are illegal to the point where you can enact the death penalty? And Gideon's like, no, we don't do that anymore. And he's like, yeah, you do. You definitely do. And he's like, we very rarely do it. Like, it's super duper rare. And then he's like, tell me when you do it.
It's interesting that they still have the death penalty, because certainly from the other episodes, I would have thought, no, there is no such thing as a death penalty. It's only death of personality. Because
that's what he says. He's like, we got past that. We have a different.
But then he
then
pushed him to say, surely there are exceptions, and he goes, yes, there are, and it's like treason and stuff like that, right? Like so. From that, I go. So that means you do still have the execution as a penalty. You know, it's to say that you do. There's different layers. There's one which is like, okay, well, you did something terrible, but you're not famous enough, I guess, that we can't just erase your memory and drop you somewhere else. If you're too famous, then I guess we got to kill you because we can't ever drop you somewhere and someone's going to recognize you because you were this guy. John Sheridan, you did treason and you lost the Civil War against Earth. Well, we're not going to mind wipe Sheridan and drop him somewhere. We're just going to kill him.
Yeah, so he's like a cashier somewhere.
Yeah.
That's not
That would be awesome. Yeah.
But basically, Kendar's like, you have to let me take them. Gideon's like, screw that. I'm not letting you do that. They bump into each other. So Mulder and Scully run into Kendar, and then Mulder tries to like kill him and takes him hostage or something. And he's like planning on jumping out of the airlock or something.
The most inept security personnel ever.
There's a lot of hilarious personnel in this episode. But I'll save those for my bonus notes. Gideon promises to let the agents go. Does he say like he's gonna let them go with Kendar? I was kind of confused about the conclusion.
No, I think he was just saying like, you guys are gonna get on your ship and we'll recharge it, and you guys go. And Kendar, you go and just get off my ship.
You separately go.
You separately go. I don't want to deal with you guys anymore. More headache than it's worth.
Right. And then Kendar stays behind. Oh, by the way, as we're doing all this like chasing around stuff, the gun that he used to do the hostage situation is fake because this is all fake. And also the poop pipe is the only real thing in this episode because the reason it smelled bad was there's a wasted disposal tube that's loose. Gideon tries to open it up, and then we just get gross poop noises and brown liquid. Like, Crusade, why? But easily my favorite part, and the thing, it's like, it's good and bad that we have a scene where Kendar is like, yes, the conspiracy is real, because X-Files would completely break down as a TV show if someone did this.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, at least, or if someone told Mulder and Scully this, because he's not telling them this, he's telling Gideon this. But basically, he's like, yep, it's not you guys that are doing it. It's our government using you because we kind of randomly picked you because you were close. And we're able to control our people because they used to fight a lot. And they stopped fighting once we gave them something to think is like the enemy. We gave them an enemy.
Yeah, like the paranoid personality that we see out of the Mulder character is not a rare trait. It's almost like an indicative trait of their society. They're so paranoid that they can't trust people of authority to not do something wrong, and that's why they would constantly have civil wars. He made that point. He said it's not just wars, but constant civil wars. And once we kind of pushed out this idea, and people would believe it, that, it's not their fault, it's because it's a secret shadow organization working with aliens, and it's the aliens' fault. And so they're kind of just distracted enough on that front that they don't fight each other, and they haven't had a civil war in a couple hundred years now as a result. So it's a weird system, but it works, I guess. But
it's sort of like we have we have an inquisitive society, so the way that we subdue them is we tell them there's an enemy to look out for, and we let them believe that they figured that out on their own, but really it's just us.
Yeah. Is that the plot of the X-Files, or what's it?
Well, I can't give you a full answer because I don't really know. I think the gist of it is like...
I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
No, I mean, that one is like, this is the humorous take on it, to say, we're going to make a fake conspiracy using tidbits of real information just as an excuse to hold power. And to control.
Is that reveal like funny to someone who's watched the X-Files?
Like that, because in X-Files it's like, there is a genuine conspiracy of a nefarious nature, and there are aliens. It is a real thing. I don't want to go.
I love that.
I don't want to go into.
We'll talk about that.
But in this case, it's like, let's flip it on its head and say, there are aliens, but they're not in on it. It's just we're just using them as a cover story, And I thought, that was definitely. The joke for the X-Files fans to say, that kind of works too. It could all just be that.
The flip is really good.
But no, they definitely did. Yeah, I won't go too much more into it.
They do all that stuff, but yeah,
lots of stuff in X.
I still want to get into the X-Files, but before we do, Gideon talks to Matheson throughout the episode about how, or at one point early, about how one of the things he can't do in space anymore is experience wind. You can't feel wind on your face because you only get artificial wind, and there's no wind in space. Which Matheson's like, man, that stinks. I wish you could feel that someday. Just like I don't know, last week where Matheson got to go into space and see the Well of Forever.
Yeah.
But in this one, Gideon, I guess it's implied that he's just like near an airlock or something.
No, it's so there's the wind by the end of the episode is just like because it's like not quite a pneumatic tube system. That's the cars that travel around, but just they're going so fast that it generates a kind of a wind tunnel, right? And because they're constantly not consistently going, that makes the ebbs and the flows that he says he misses or whatever. But the funny thing is going like, okay, so screw oranges. That's Sheridan. We're about the wind, But then
for sure, I the thing I hate about space is that there's no wind is gigantic Sheridan energy. That's a great point.
Yeah. But the funny thing is they still pulled on to that whole this is not real coffee gag, and it's just like like when I'm not at the office and I'm just at home, I'm the laziest when it comes to making coffee. I just need something. So I am very much like an instant coffee kind of person. So I just gotta go like, if it can suit me, I mean, it can't be that bad. I mean, how many aficionados for coffee are there really that are in space? They all stay on Earth, right?
Yeah,
it's a small percent to go to space.
Yeah, you don't have to go to space to get fake coffee. I get that in Brooklyn,
which is pretty much like space, kind of.
Yeah, in a way, it's like
freeze dried everything in space, including coffee.
Right, but Gideon's more of Matthew Gideon is more of an old-fashioned guy. It's hard to say his name and not say it the way he says it in the theme song. Who are you? Matthew Gideon. But he's enjoying paradise. He's enjoying the wind tunnel with some wind on his face and a nice crisp Hawaiian shirt and glasses and a nice little boat drink. I thought that was a really charming way to end the episode, kind of being like, because the other thing that happens briefly is that I think, is it after the scene or right before this, where the other thing he does is he says, pull up to the planet, get into firing range, don't fire weapons, but fire the whole encyclopedia at them.
Yeah. And
fire it in 1 million probes. And so we want them to have their knowledge so that the government can't control them anymore.
The danger of introducing knowledge into society, obviously Star Trek has that whole first contact protocol is that, that knowledge is going to cause more damage than good. Obviously, it could kind of come up here, but I mean, he knows why they are using it. And I understand why he says, well, maybe I don't want Earth to get the blame when they do get jump gate technology, because that's a big part that they kind of mentioned was they know about other species, they know that jump gates exist, they just don't know how them themselves. So
how that works.
So until that happens, they kind of have to try to stick to themselves and stay quiet so no one finds it before they can kind of try to catch up. But he knows that eventually they will get it, and eventually they'll come onto the stage, and then there's a whole population of people who will recognize humans and say, you're the guys who've been messing with our government, our people all this time, so they're going to have a resentment. So I understand that point, but I just kind of have to assume that you throw this information out there, if what he said is true, it's immediate civil war. The ship is flying away, there's nuclear bombs going off, and Gideon's just dropping the mission accomplished flag, like, good job.
Right. It's there. It doesn't seem like people would pick up the information and say, "Oh, all right."
Like these bomb-shaped probes
back to our normal life. Yeah.
These bomb-shaped probes that are like, ooh, technology and like magic. Like it's not going to work that way. Also, it just feels maybe I don't know, out of character or what, because I don't have enough of a picture of Gideon's character fully.
Yeah,
but like he says, this whole thing about like the rules of first contact, right, are that if you're on the ship that does it, the captain is the one that has to speak to them. He has to be the first one to speak to them because that's how you keep the rules and you keep liability in check. But also he's like, So we shouldn't bother him. Everybody get off my ship and go back to your planet. I don't want to deal with you guys anymore. But he also wants to completely change the cultural makeup of their planet permanently by just throwing encyclopedias at them.
I mean, it's obviously the other one. They both have consequences of lives in the end, but I would say that I think it fits his character, what we've seen, because if we go back to the first episode that you guys watched in the JMS Order, and the planet that's also has the Drock plague, that they have a couple of people kind of, he wiped out their whole fleet kind of thing, as like, he didn't have to, but he's just like, I don't like their game. I don't like what they're doing. So I'm gonna throw down the gauntlet, take them all out, and I'm gonna piss off, and you guys can do with you guys later.
I'm trying to get a sense for what is at the core of who Matthew Gideon is, because I think we've joked about this before, but despite the fact that the theme song literally says, "Who are you? What do you want?" I have no idea who he is or what he wants. Because when he makes a choice like this, he presents it in part as like, I'm doing it for the benefit of Earth. And he presents looking for a cure to the Drock plague as doing it for the benefit of Earth. But I don't really buy him as this sort of like patriotic, rah Earth kind of guy. He doesn't feel like that. He doesn't feel like a hero either. And so the sense, like you're saying, Nick, what I'm getting from him is that sometimes it just seems like he makes choices because he like feels like he should get to decide the rules or like the morals or what's fair play and what's not. And it's almost like a instinctual, like, this bugs me. I don't like that they're doing that, so I'm gonna make them stop.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that he's a loose cannon, somewhat unpredictable, but there's a predictability in it somewhere.
It's the loose cannon that he thinks that he's doing. Well, his moral says that this is the right thing to do, but it's at the same time reckless and doesn't necessarily think of maybe the consequences of it later. They say, "Oh, we're going to destroy this fleet for this alien race because they're trying to figure out the cure." Presumably, he could have not done that. Maybe they would find a cure, and you would have saved a lot more lives. And this one here,
right.
Well, it's insulting to humanity that we're being portrayed in this unfair light, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that for 200 years they haven't had a civil war versus they did before. So, he kind of just goes, "Well, that doesn't feel right. I'm going to stop it." But again, not thinking long term what it might be. But maybe that means he's more willing to be right in what he feels, and he feels right about it, even if it's not the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
he's very much like a damn the consequences guy. Yeah.
Interesting choice to put this in the episode, I think, though, because they didn't have to. They could have just said, like, get these aliens off. I don't need them on my ship.
That ending, whenever, because I remember this. I remember the reveal as to why they were doing this conspiracy when I had originally seen it, and then watching it more recently, going, "Oh yeah, there is this part here." Like, he kind of didn't even need it. You could have cut it out, and it would have been.
Yeah, and then when you see the alien smoking a cigarette, it just erases your brain like the device from Men in Black, and you can't remember a thing from anything.
Right, that either that or the wind thing should be the last scene of the episode. But
I think I would. If I remember back, I probably would have thought that the wind thing is the last thing. But you have to wonder, like, okay, I'm on this ship. I'm just a regular crew member. I know that our mission is super critical. We need to save Earth. And then you're like, and you see your captain walk by in a colorful shirt with sunglasses, and you're just like, are we taking this seriously, or is it just me? Like, what's wrong with this ship? Have we given up? We're just gonna go find.
Are we done?
Or are we just gonna go find the equivalent of Tahiti? Find some girls to hang out with and just start anew.
Start our own hippie colony. Do we have any stray notes about visitors from down the street before we move into our X-Files discussion?
Oh, just that they looked gross.
Yes.
The aliens.
The tentacle hair.
I think they were a gross one, and it sometimes looked like their makeup was CG, but it wasn't, right?
No.
That would be crazy.
Well, it's my favorite thing about it is that it looks so fake that the joke of on their planet they find an alien, knock him out because he comes into the office, and he takes off the mask and it's a human under it was hilarious to me.
Well, and then they take off the human mask and it's a dude again.
Yes.
That was another moment where I was like, how funny is this supposed to be? Because it's very funny.
Well,
but that was before that was on my first watch, and then my second watch, I was like, wait, this isn't funny. This is actually a genius hint at the reveal of the episode.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, it makes sense now. You go, oh yeah, because there is no humans on their planet. They don't exist.
Yeah, I was like, that's why the alien mask was so loose and the human mask was tucked into his collar, because they thought that he would stop taking masks off and think it was a human.
Well, because they did a joke like that in the Babylon 5 episode when they had the gift shop, if you remember, where somebody had just taken off like an alien mask, and then she turns to what she thinks is a human, and she says, isn't this ridiculous? And then the guy takes off the human mask, and it's a drowsy. He goes, Commander, do you know how much this is? And then I don't know if I've seen the episode, or I've seen it and I forgot, or if it's a later episode maybe of X-Files I didn't see. But apparently there was a joke like that on X-Files, at least at some point, where there was a double mask.
Okay,
but I think it might have been after this episode. I think this episode did it first.
Crusade inspired the X-Files. Bam! I nailed it.
Exactly.
Life imitates art, imitates Crusade.
Exactly. Lamundo.
Exact Lamundo.
A couple other funny gags. I was talking about like funny staff on the ship. They have a brief moment where there's like a mechanic who's exploring. I guess he's exploring Mulder and Scully's ship or something. But he's exploring the Excalibur because he's making a poop joke, and he's like, he's poking around here. So
he's the guy who's working with Matheson to like keep looking because the captain insists to keep looking for the smell. And
that's what it is.
It was like a slight hint of view from the gallery again. I was just like,
exactly. He definitely had that energy for sure. Yeah. And he's like poking around here so long. The only thing that stinks is me.
Would it have been better if that character was, in fact, you see that it's one of the guys from that episode, just bring one of them back? He just happened.
I think that would be a good reference.
Yeah, it just for whatever reason he happened to get transferred. He was like, man, I should have gone back to Babylon 5. This is terrible. Why did I ever leave?
This was a weird plot to tell us that telepaths have super senses.
I don't get that, actually, because it doesn't make sense. Like,
I know, make any sense.
I know he doesn't contradict it. He just says, "Oh, we can't use our special gifts or whatever." After he accused him of, "Aren't you supposed to have heightened senses?" Because as far as I know, it's more just an additional sense, not anything. We've never heard of Lita going like to Zach Allen, like, "Do you have pizza behind your back? Because my extra sense of smell can tell there's pizza behind your back." That didn't happen.
The thing that I thought about in that moment that would have or could have been cool is telepaths maybe being able to like almost slingshot their senses through someone else, or like sense what someone else is sensing. So maybe it's not like I have super smell, but I can smell what the other side of the room smells like, because like that dude is over there and I can read his mind.
Oh, good theory.
Yeah,
I like that.
But that's not what they were saying.
The only way I can think of it is more like, so their telepathy means that if they don't train themselves, condition themselves to pick up, to block stray thoughts, they'll be constantly hearing people's thoughts all the time. So that kind of training of controlling their senses and refining them and focusing them, maybe that's an unintended consequence that they can, it's like a meditative like thing where they kind of just focus in their energy and they ignore everything else and just focus on one sense at a time. Maybe something like that. That's the best I can do, but it still doesn't make sense.
Sure, that works.
And then finally, my two favorite Agent Kendar moments kind of are in the same scene. He tells Gideon that the truth is out of fashion.
No.
The truth is out of fashion. Because the truth is out there, you guys. Did you get it? And in case you're not like, oh, it's the X-Files, that's really cute. This part like is so weirdly aggressive to me, and I really love it. He's like, Captain Gideon, in studying your planet, there's a lot of things that are so addicting, like the food and the drinks and
the pizza and ice cream
and cigarettes. He pulls out a cigarette and he's a smoking man. Did you get it? He literally smokes a cigarette into the camera. This guy is great. I love the guy who plays Agent Kendall.
This guy's voice is off the chain. I dig it.
I had to look him up because I feel like he's supposed to be in something else, but I didn't recognize anything else. Because he's got that voice.
He's supposed to be in everything else. That's the thing.
I feel like he would have been good for some sort of Saturday morning cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that vibe. But yeah.
Why, execute them, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
So Kendar rules. Big Kendar fan club here. And I think that's what we got for this discussion. A chunky episode, I guess, in hindsight. But an interesting one nonetheless.
So you guys watched it first clean and then watched the X-Files pilot and then watched it again. Both of you.
Yep, that's right.
I actually did. Mm-hmm. Well, I did Visitors from Down the Street, half of the X-Files, Visitors from Down the Street again, second half of the X-Files. So, but that
was an unnecessary machete.
That's not. Yeah, it's the JMS order.
Yeah, just Crusade.
I shifted up.
Crusade chat order, which is just rules.
It's like Angel and Buffy, where you have to watch like one episode of this and 2 episodes of this, except it's X-Files and Babylon 5, and it's broken. It doesn't work. Or Crusade. I keep forgetting the show isn't called Babylon 5. I miss Lena. Hey, Lena. Hey, Lena.
She's already dead. Cool. She's already dead by this point, right?
She's super dead. She's not alive. Her kids are alive.
Oh shit! Some sort of sacrifice. Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, some sort of sacrifice.
Not the Sins as good, if not better. But let's, because we didn't get any emails this week, which is fine. We have a guest on, and that's always fun. So, but do send in your emails, chatspod@gmail.com, and we'll be right back after this brief musical break to discuss the pilot of the X-Files.
To Chatzylon 5? Wait, hold on. I can make this title work. You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season 6.5. Chatzylon 5 presents Crusade Chats, presents Pilot Chats, presents The Chats Files.
Death. You actually nailed it.
It's me, Magellan. I'm still here, and I'm joined as always by this is the reveal, everybody, by the Mulder to my Scully.
Whoa,
Alan.
Hello. That's correct. You know what? I always like being the girl, but that's correct.
I think in this case, Mulder is the girl.
Well, yeah. So we'll talk about that. Nick is also here. Welcome back, Nick.
Wait, hold on. I was gonna do.
Okay. Thank you.
He's a smoking man. He's smoking.
I have a lot of
there.
things in my head. I have a lot of X-Files thoughts.
I was gonna insert myself as my still post-flu voice is the smoking man voice.
Yeah.
I don't smoke, but it's close enough.
Well, what were you gonna give him?
What'd you say?
What were you going to? You said you were gonna give him a name.
I was going to call him the Smoking Man. This could have been great. We were on the same page. He's the Smoking Man. But then Scully has to come in here. Wait, I'm Scully. Mulder has to come in here and muck it all up as he always does.
You see, the conspiracies are hard to follow, including the intro of this episode.
Yeah, that's true. It's just as convoluted as a good X-Files plot. Sorry, Alan, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say that in doing research about the X-Files after watching this pilot, I learned a lot about like the gender relationship between Scully and Mulder, and how that was another intentional thing that they were doing was like usually the skeptic is the male, and so they intentionally were like, no, actually the like science lady is going to be the skeptic because that makes more sense. It doesn't have to be a guy. Gender is fake, which I think is really cool and fairly progressive actually of the X-Files to do that.
Yeah, it still in some cases is like mansplaining the show.
True.
But
at least this time it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the girl being like, it's aliens, and the guy's like, you're crazy. It's entirely
right. That's true.
But yeah, we watched. Well, you tell the kids what we watched, Marge.
I would love to tell the kids what we watched, homie. We watched The X-Files Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot. It was written by series creator Chris Carter, directed by Robert Mandel. It aired September 10th, 1993. And Alan, I'd like for you to, and presumably it takes place in 1993. It's weird to lose the takes place part of the episode summary. Alan, I'd like you to summarize for us what happened in Pilot.
Well, Magellan, in this episode, Dana Scully is assigned to work with Fox Mulder, an FBI agent with an interest in the paranormal. Together, they travel to Oregon, where Mulder believes several teenagers have been abducted by aliens. Doo-doo-doo-doo. When I told my coworker I was going to be watching X-Files, he was like, "Oh, I know X-Files, dwee-dee-dee-dwee," and I was like, "Is that your attempt at the theme song?" He was like, "I shot my shot."
Like Star Wars fans, they say, may the Force be with you. Star Trek fans say, live long and prosper. X-Files fans just say, do. They just do random parts, random noises. That's alien speak. There you go.
I came into homeroom this morning at school, and my students were talking about that Netflix show, You.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And like, oh, have you seen
It's good.
You?
I like
blah, blah, blah. I've heard it's good, yeah. And I sort of elbowed my way into the conversation. I was like, you know what show's good is the X-Files. Because I just watched the pilot. And this one kid goes, yikes.
Oh my gosh, that is perfect.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to give us a rule here, and let's say we can try to keep this discussion under an hour, because I honestly could talk about just this pilot for like 3 hours.
I could talk about it forever. It's so good.
Yeah, but we'll do our best because this is still technically a chats episode. So,
I'm having the same experience with this that I had when we watched the first episode of... By the way, maybe there's some people who are listening to this who aren't patrons and haven't listened to a pilot discussion before. But basically what we've been doing on the Patreon for a while is... If you're subscribed at $5 a month, you can listen to Alan and myself try out shows that we might cover on chats by watching the first episode and talking about them. So that's what we'll do with the X-Files here. And watching the X-Files, I had the same experience that I had when we piloted Star Trek: The Original Series about a month ago. Yeah. Where I was like, I
could have just done this.
Yeah, I was angry that I had not watched it, because for the entire time that I've been conscious of pop culture, I have known that the X-Files existed, because the X-Files is like essentially as old as I am. So for my whole life, it has existed and been in the zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. And the whole time I've been like, well, that show's probably not good though, right? And I know that there's definitely a lot of the X-Files that's bad, because how could there not be? But watching this, I was like upset at how good it is, and that I have never watched it. And it's that thing of like when you realize that your parents were right all along, when you grow up and you're like, oh, all the things that people always say about like XYZ part of life, it turns out they're right. It turns out that the X-Files is good.
Nick, do you have history with the X-Files? Because I know you asked to be on the Visitors from Down the Street discussion, so it sounded like you had at least something there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was a fan of it while it was on, at least, initially. I think I kind of tapered out over the last couple of seasons. Like, I definitely stuck through the show, including then they had a spin-off that lasted just for one season, and then they kind of brought those guys back. There was, almost felt like a finale there, a bit. where it peaked, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, watching a show in the 90s that's about conspiracies is a lot more fun than it is today. Because nowadays,
'Cause now everything's true.
nowadays
Like,
it's like,
all right.
back then we got aliens, we got abductions, weird stuff, right? Now it's all like deep state and like deeply depressing, crazy ideas that are probably just propaganda just to confuse the issues. So
Yeah.
I can't go. I can never go onto Reddit or anywhere else where it's like a conspiracies subcategory and have fun with just talking about aliens. Which again, I'm gonna just make it clear. I don't believe in any of this stuff. It's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'm a big space nut. I don't believe in aliens in the context like this show. But it's just fun to say, well, what if they were around? Okay, let's just enjoy that. Between this and like Men in Black, I think the 90s had that feel where we can kind of just enjoy that kind of stuff. But I don't think it necessarily, you wouldn't, I mean, there is obviously the newer seasons of the X-Files that they did, they kind of brought them back. But I don't, if you tried to pitch the initial premise of, it's a show about conspiracies, it's a different kind of show.
Yeah, because I did some listening to our competition if we were to do an X-Files podcast. Because Kumail Nanjiani is like a big X-Files fan. And he, for a little while, did a podcast called The X-Files Files, where he talked about some of the episodes he liked. So he covered the pilot. And in the pilot discussion, I can't remember what he was quoting, but there was some critic who was saying that The X-Files is a show that is one of the first great TV shows to have a big following on the internet. That is also one of the last great TV shows to depict a world where like the internet isn't really a thing, which I thought was really interesting. And it speaks to what you're saying, Nick, about the role that conspiracy theory plays in society now versus then, where like pre-internet, being a conspiracy theorist is like a lot of work, or like early internet, it's kind of a lot of work. It's almost like this, I don't know. The way that Mulder's presented is that he's got a kind of academic obsession with the paranormal, and he has to do a lot of research and uncover things and compare different accounts.
And it feels like he's probably validating proof, right? Like in the context of the show, he's finding proof because within the context of the show, this stuff is real. So he can actually find proof and validate it. Whereas nowadays, I got this documentary on Netflix about flat earthers, and you're just watching the thing, and you're like, "What the heck?" Can you? I can't imagine Mulder being a flat earther, right?
Right, and now the version of being a conspiracy theorist is like, I let the YouTube algorithm run for a little bit too long, and now I'm watching like a conspiracy theory YouTube channel that has 30 million subscribers, and it's like just like a handsome dude talking about flat Earth or whatever. Yeah,
Or Chills.
And it's just a whole, different thing.
Have y'all heard of Chills? Is a YouTuber who has a notoriously funny voice. You should watch one of his videos sometimes. He does a lot of these like conspiracy and like haunted mansion, haunted house kind of things.
Right. And
I think it's a great point.
I mean, this show is also before all those ghost hunter shows as well, right? Like,
yeah.
I think I don't pay attention to those because they take themselves so seriously. X-Files, at least I knew it was purely a work of fiction, and I didn't have to like take it serious. And again, I always have to wonder: how much did Chris Carter believe in this, and how much it was just him going like, "I just like to write science fiction, and this is the way in which I want to tell the story."
I think this is not an episode that's going to be worth digging into like beat by beat, even though there's a lot of great scenes in here, because we're talking about the X-Files from what we know of it as a whole and what this pilot says about like what this show could be for us, and also how it relates back to Visitors from Down the Street, because that's a very referential episode. But for me, right from the get-go, the thing that was striking was nobody told me that the whole dynamic between Mulder and Scully is that she was assigned by the FBI to prove him wrong, or to like get data on him, basically.
Yeah. I never
which
knew
is
that
like
part.
it's a fascinating a layer on their relationship that I just did not know about.
She's his watcher, essentially there to keep an eye on him. And he knows it. He's very aware of that fact. But he's totally willing to like bring her along and, you know, try to show her and convince her of what he's found. He's willing to have because again, he's the academic, intellectual debate about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's really, it's nice that match.
What I thought was cool about Mulder is that, I mean, I really liked both of them as characters. And I guess what I like about their relationship, and I was struck by just how strong that relationship is from the very beginning. You can tell already that the core of what makes this show good is Mulder and Scully, and it's fully realized in the pilot. I think there are some shows that like kind of wobble or take a while to figure out exactly how these characters interact, but it seems like from the jump, this show gets what they want it to be. Between the two of them. And what I liked about it is that both of them are really, they're not like catty with each other, and they're not, they don't fight.
They're not like rom-com-y people either. You know?
They're like trying to hear the other person out, and they share a lot of qualities with each other. Both of them are like driven by wanting there to be proof, wanting to find the truth, wanting there to be sort of evidence that outlines the way things are. And both of them also are committed to like, well, this is, you know, my bigger belief or whatever. And also both of them are like doubtful of what they do and don't understand. And so you see moments in this pilot where like Scully dips into believing some of the things that Mulder believes, and Mulder dips into doubting himself, and they kind of have a relationship that's more fluid and elastic than your typical like, oh well, he's the paranormal guy and she's the skeptic, and they really can't see eye to eye. It's a way of doing character philosophy and like two-person scene work that is just so much more naturalistic and sophisticated than I feel like I see most of the time.
For sure. It's it doesn't fall into the trap of just them at the end of the episode being like, well, I guess we don't have enough evidence to prove that Mulder was right. Oh well, like she saw it. She saw the lights, you know, she doesn't have enough proof, and also the whole system is working against them. These are two people who are kind of have an interesting relationship with authority because they both are employees of the FBI, and that's like who signs their checks and who they work under. But every time they actually find something, at least in this episode, and presumably for most of the show, it's going to be like, oh, well, we have to figure out a way to keep this evidence because the FBI is going to erase all of it because this is where we found the cover-up. Deeply satisfying, too, to know that there's a cover-up and it's confirmed in the first episode. It's not like we're not doubting that the whole time. It's like, yes, it totally exists. Of course it does.
Yeah. And then Mulder's background as like a profiler, like you know, kind of an analyst kind of approach, where she's actually as an MD. You know, she didn't go into versus regular medicine. She did go into the FBI, and they kind of asked her why she did that. She wanted to challenge, but she's obviously also very scientifically driven, you know, inspection and analysis like that. But you know,
right, and more like hard science than him.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're coming in again, both highly educated, both willing to do analysis and research, but slightly different directions coming at it. Mm-hmm. So they complement in the same way.
Yeah, I was surprised that in the first, my sense of the X-Files was that it was going to string us along for a while of like, is Mulder crazy? Like, is it real? Yeah. But yeah, we literally see like alien light shine on somebody, and we see the smoking man hide a weird thingy in a case of weird thingies. So aliens are real, and we know that they are, which I guess is cool. And then it makes me wonder, like, this show is, 10 seasons long or something? Does it go somewhere that works would I feel satisfied if I were to watch all of the X-Files? And
again, I
then how
haven't
do you...
seen the very
Yeah.
end of the original run. I mean, I kind of read up on it after the fact, but certainly I was enjoying it the whole way along. And there's you do get stuff revealed, but it's not like every episode is just specifically about alien abduction or that aspect of the conspiracy. There is scattered throughout the whole run of it a lot of the Monster of the Week like episodes, right? And that gives you a nice break into it, because again, he's just going to be like, not every X-Files happens to be involved in that conspiracy. The Smoking Man doesn't show up in every episode. I have to wonder, Magellan, I know you mentioned your fandom for Bare Naked Ladies. Like, now you understand the line, I hope the Smoking Man's in this one.
Yes. Like Harrison
Not in all
Ford
of
getting
them.
frantic, like Sting 'em Tantric, like Snickers guaranteed to satisfy.
Oh boy.
I was so excited to reference that, and I'm even more excited that you referenced my excitement about it before I did.
Yeah,
I
it loops
mean,
all the way back around.
I still listen to BNL, so anytime you make
Yes!
it, like, nice, Of course, Canadian.
Yes!
Come on.
My gosh. No, never mind. I'm not going to give this idea away on the podcast, but I have a BNL podcast
Save your
idea.
BNL idea.
Wow, yeah, you gave away the Babylon number 5 idea, so we knew that was coming, but now you're going to let us be surprised.
I'm going to keep this one a surprise. Keep it in my back pocket.
My thing with this pilot too is there are all these questions set up, but it kind of like knows that you're going to have these questions, and it doesn't set you up like you should expect concrete answers to everything, because it's like, my main question was like, what's the deal with the Smoking Man? And like the answer is probably he just either runs or helps run the conspiracy. What is the conspiracy? It's probably like what they say in Visitors from Down the Street. Like, they're probably controlling people like Mulder and Scully from letting things happen. It doesn't have to be. It can be complicated as much as they want it to be, and clearly they did, because it went for 1 million seasons. But it's kind of just like, this episode could almost stand on its own, where it's just like, yeah, wonder about it. The wondering about it is the fun part. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching this going like, when do they answer XYZ? Because I figure it'll all either get just talked about or they'll figure something out,
Something that I want to sort of pick your brain about for a second, Alan, is on this podcast episode from Kumail's show, he mentions that
Lost would
Damon
not exist
Lindelof,
without the X-Files.
And that what he said of Lost was, we learned how to not end a show from the X-Files. Like, we learned the way that we don't want to end a show from the X-Files.
Extremely.
But
the
Lost
most
gets
messy.
real messy,
that's
right?
A little PodCon, the kettle black, or whatever the expression is, right?
Yeah.
And again, I can't speak because I gave up.
Right, yeah,
I
that
didn't give up
seems...
like angry. I just kind of stopped watching after the last couple seasons of the X-Files. But not because I wasn't enjoying it, I just got distracted with other things in life and didn't come back to it. But Lost, I mean, I can rant about how much I got frustrated on that one.
I think even the most the most dedicated X-Files fans that I know of are like, the show should have ended earlier. Like, they strung it along unnecessarily, and it ends up just getting stupider and like flanderizing its characters and doing all this stuff. Like, it's just a case of like, this show should not have gone that long. What's great though is it has such a rich mythology, and like the areas that they go to, and like the rich detail of like the FBI building and office, even in itself. I've been thinking a lot about that, like, because now that I work in government, I'm always like, what does government building work look like in television, or in media? Because there's that video game that came out last year related to the X-Files called Control, which is a game where you're playing a person investigating a very mysterious government building. That's all I'll say about it. But like, everything feels like, oh, there could be 1 million plots in here. Even just Mulder's office has all these different pictures of like, there's a caveman thing and a big skull, and like like in Visitors from Down the Street, like the Mount Rushmore stuff. Like, that's all episodes that could happen. And there are characters that we're never going to see again. And then there are characters that, just from like the lightest bit of Googling I did, it's like, no, this is a person. Like, Billy Miles is a character on the show. He's not just like the psychic kid who comes in and is like, I'm getting abducted or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, he's a character, and we're going to see him for a long time. He's going to be here for a while. And that adds so much texture and character to like the the world that these people aren't just in and out like a lot of procedurals. Yeah, I can't say enough. Like, I was really blown away by the how invested I was in this episode.
Yeah,
just the mystery, the build up, all of
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it could whether it's how the comment about how not to end a show, but certainly it's a good example of how to do a pilot, I guess, right? Like, it gives you enough for a single episode, and then enough on the outside world that you want to further develop if the show continues. Because it's called pilot. Like, I'm gonna assume you watch the other episodes, you don't see like a tonal change, or things don't look different. So it's not like, oh, they did the pilot like the B5 movie. They did the pilot, and then a year later it comes back and it looks kind of different. Like this one,
this is what the show looks
like. They solidified the look, and they went with it pretty smoothly. Although it's just funny watching the show now for me. Quite a while later. No, I wasn't living in Vancouver at the time. Now I am. You're just going, oh man, this thing looks so much like Vancouver for the 90s. Like, it's just screaming.
Extremely filled in Vancouver.
Yeah. So it's like, how many times are they going to go to Oregon or Washington? Like, how many alien abductions are going to happen in the Pacific Northwest? I don't know. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although I get the third or fourth season that they switched to LA because the company didn't want to be in Vancouver as well. At least that's what I heard.
Really?
Well, I heard that at the time. I mean, they say it's they could save money in LA. A lot of shows do that. Like, they'll move back and forth based on tax cuts or whatever. It's a race to the bottom as far as taxes.
Right.
Like Lucifer on if you guys watch that show, they just moved back to LA because they were in Vancouver, and then they lost some tax breaks. They moved back to LA.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's and well, I mean, like John was saying earlier, the relationship between the two of them is so essential to this show working, because if I didn't like the main characters, then these mysteries wouldn't hold up to that much scrutiny, and I would just be like, all right, well, I guess Billy is actually like part of the abduction plot, like that's fine. But like his father being a detective felt like a big reveal to me, where I was like, wait, what? That guy with the shotgun from earlier is the detective who also was like, don't investigate this crime because he's involved in it. Like gives me the same thing, the feeling that I had the first time I watched Twin Peaks, where it's like,
I was going to mention Twin Peaks. Yeah, it definitely has that sort of quiet, weird place out of time. Everybody knows each other, and that's super scary kind of vibe.
Out of time specifically, like our first example of actual real supernatural stuff is that Mulder like draws an X in the road before they investigate the forest, and then comes back and realizes that 9 minutes disappeared. And that's so, I love, like, someone writes that down, and that's just, you're a genius for writing that down, because 9 minutes is enough that someone could be like, dude, it's 9 minutes. Like, you probably forgot what was happening. But as someone who's literally timing everything, it's like, no, that's time. That you... He asks the woman, he asks Billy's like aide, he's like, what were you doing at 9 o'clock? She's like, oh, I was watching TV. And he's like, do you know what you're watching? She's like, I don't know exactly what I was doing. I just know I was sitting in front of TV. Because like, yeah, you can't ask me what I did from 9:07 to 9 o'clock to 9:09. So I won't remember that. Yeah. I can vaguely give you something, but I won't know exactly what it is.
Because admittedly, like, yeah, and then you kind of come back to real life, and you're like, well, real life people just drive, and then you're kind of not even thinking about driving, they're like autopilot, so not even thinking of the time. Yeah. Like, wow, the time has changed, something like that. It's along with sleep paralysis as a genuine thing that people can get, and them misconstruing it as ghosts or alien abductions because they hallucinated something because they're still partially asleep having dreams, but they're also conscious and looking in the room. They can't move. So what do you and a car goes by and it flashes its lights, and I'm like, oh my god, there's an alien. So there's all these things where let's just enjoy the world where that actually is real and just forget the real explanations. So like Scully, she's just like what is she giving? Oh no, I might be thinking the next episode. I don't want to say it's the next episode, but she gives like an example where like, well, of course that's what people say because that's probably what it is, you know.
Yeah,
I think the main point is that there's definitely times where Scully is going to say oh no, you know what it was that I'm thinking of. it's where she was talking about, oh, do you believe in aliens? And she's like logically no, because the distance is so vast, the energy requirement wouldn't happen. And that is the real answer, because that's a legitimate thought to be made. But again, within the context of the show, let's just imagine that they did come and they are here, and let's just have fun with it. So,
and we'll go from there. We'll play with that space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, what I enjoy about Scully is that she's like, no, couldn't be. And then after they lose the 9 minutes, she is in the bathroom for like a strange fan service moment of like, hey, welcome to our show, where the female lead, you can see her bra. But she checks her back and she feels something there, and she's like so scared that she immediately goes to Mulder and disrobes, and it's like, look, is there something, do I have the marks that all these kids have? So she's ready to buy it and to be swept along on his like his
conspiracy
little,
adventure,
alien abduction conspiracy adventure. But every part of her is like, no, that's crazy. But if it was true, that would explain a lot of this stuff. Everything would line up if that was the real deal.
Yeah. I like that
about.
I have this explanation for my kids, because like, they might see a scary movie or something like that, and I kind of very much explain it to them, and they'll seem to understand it. We're saying like, we can enjoy watching a ghost story and understanding that within the context of that movie, they are real, and then you take a step out and they're not real. So you don't need to be scared about them outside of it. But it's just fun. Mm-hmm. Anyways, let's watch Ghostbusters. They're not real, but let's have fun anyways. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're not going to get slimed in the library. The library is a great place where you can read books. Library. And you can get DVDs there too if you want. Games.
Anyways.
This episode brought to you by
Yeah.
Show your support.
Seriously. Support your local library. So my other big like thematic thing that I really liked is what Magellan talked about earlier regarding like the X-Files files, and how this show lies right at a really key point in society where like we're developing technology, the internet is like right around the corner, but we still have to have a whole scene where Mulder is like, the only reason I can do this is because I know somebody in Congress. If I didn't have a human connection who is high up enough that's helping me, then I would get nothing, because I don't have any other way of getting this data. There's no database, there's no filing system that the FBI gives me access to. It's like he has to rely on a dude that's like, hey, here's the files you want. Like so much of this show works because of where it lies in time. That's why I think the show going into like the 2010s or whatever, it feels so weird. It's like, how do they ever reckon with that? That's like, I'm curious about that, but also I'm sure I'd be disappointed by like them having cell phones.
Yeah.
Because the image of like Mulder and Scully holding cell phones is the X-Files, right? That's like the iconic thing you think of.
Yeah, but those are not smartphone cell phones.
Right, not even in this. They're barely functioning cell phones. Like the big chunky phones.
They're enough that they can get, radio frequency interference or whatever. Right? Like it's just enough analog that it's still, because they're driving along and he paints that X because the radio starts going digital perfect packet transmission. You're not going to get those artifacts. It's because you still have static on a TV set, that can shift, and maybe you see something in it and those kinds of things. Like, I don't know if you guys, I didn't see the new Poltergeist movie, but the original Poltergeist was the same thing. They got that static, and you can kind of see stuff, and it plays with your mind about that, and it's larger because it is analog.
Because it's analog, exactly. I love original Poltergeist. That's a very good movie.
Yes, very much so.
Also, how are you supposed to burn down the motel room with all the files? Exactly. You could have just put it in.
Google's in on it. Oh my god!
In hindsight, there's a. I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's a moment where a building is burned down in the film Knives Out, and like key files are destroyed, and it's like, do they not have storage? That movie takes place in the modern day, but those are like blood samples. But anyways,
I didn't watch more than maybe the first 2 seasons of it, but there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there was that one joke where they're like, because they're trying to get access to the these conspiracy aspect files, and they're
Yeah, yeah.
like, get ready for a file transfer, and it's literally everything's hard copy, nothing's digitized, and that's how they keep it a secret. So a file transfer is just throwing a file cabinet out of a window. Like, get ready for a file transfer, file cabinet. Like
That's fun.
that was a nice take on that aspect. But certainly, it's like, yes, anything digital, doesn't,
These files wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Maybe physical evidence can still be an issue. Like, they steal the body from the morgue.
True. Body disappears.
The
all that
little,
stuff.
a big aspect of it is the idea of implanted technology, where it's the chemical traces in those little dots, or if it's some other sort of a chip, like that type of stuff. I guess you can still have a lot of interesting ideas with that.
In hindsight, a lot of this show feels like it's about what proof is, like what's physical proof and what's like spoken word proof and that kind of thing. Because once they both realize that, like, yes, this conspiracy is real, it's like, all right, well, what do we do about it? We're both FBI employees. We work for the people that are stopping us, and we don't have that many resources. Like, how do we progress? And that's like the tension at the center of the show for and at least in the mystery of the show. The real tension is, are they going to have sex or not? I hope not. But no. I just don't need another one of these, like, the main characters. Like,
They don't.
Come on.
Oh, great! Hell yeah!
Yeah.
Finally, a good show.
They tease
Excellent.
it. They have fun with that aspect, like, for like the fan service. But it's never.
Yeah.
They never get romantically involved, and all for the better, because you didn't need that.
I'll get them romantically involved with other people for sure. Why not? I mean, that's
Okay, that's fine. They're so, I guess the reason that they're so overt with this, like, electric sexual tension scene is to be like, see, we're not doing
to
it.
dangle the key.
Like,
in front
look,
of you.
his face is right next to her butt. He's like right next to her butt, and he's like, there are mosquito bites. Anyway, now let's lie in bed and
I
talk
thought
about
that
boys
the
we
lying
like
in bed was in her
until
home. It's at
midnight
his
or
hotel
something.
room, which is a little bit less weird. Well,
No, because
not
she
really.
came to his hotel, so then just kind of stayed there to talk about stuff.
And he comes up to the door in like a big sweater or whatever. He's very charming. These are two handsome, are very attractive actors. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say
David
it. David Duchovny, I wouldn't mind having
the Mulder hair is amazing.
If my hair could do that.
What do you guys think of
Mulder
his
hair
sense
is
of
really
humor?
something else.
He's very dark at times, because he's like the body, like the casket rolls over, and he's just look like, well, I guess he wasn't on the varsity team or something like that, and then immediately goes to close this off right away. Like he goes.
Some of the quips are a lot.
The thing that I found about Mulder is, like, I don't think that that's funny, and I don't think it's supposed to be funny, because it seems like what I'm learning about Mulder is that he's so wrapped up in his mission to understand the conspiracy that he doesn't understand how to interact with people. Like, when they're in the what would you call that? Not the hospital, but what? No, not the morgue. Where the teenagers are, where the
Billy
one kid is in the
bye.
coma, and then where the one girl starts to freak out.
He's like completely calm about it.
He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" He's completely calm, and then he's like, "Let's get a medical test on her," and then she starts really stressing out, and he effortlessly like restrains her and quickly checks if she's got the marks, and he's like, man, see, like, he just doesn't really care that much about the people around him. He's not going to be a bad guy, and he's also not like gruff, but he's just so detached from normal people that, it's kind of like, oh, what's the deal with this guy?
Yeah, he's got
weird.
And they talk about, like, when he sits down with Scully, like, his backstory. His sister was abducted or disappeared at a very young, when he was 12 years old, and that like ruined his whole family dynamic. He like left his family, went to Oxford, got into the FBI, joined the X-Files, found the conspiracy, and then immediately was like, they're never going to let me get this out there, but I'm going to try. So he like finds his obsession at such a young age.
Where oh, when your family falls apart, you just go to Oxford,
Right.
What we
For some
all
reason,
just do as a default.
that's a really easy. and
That's where
effortless thing to do.
all the backpacking ends when you're in Europe. Oxford.
It's the ultimate goal of backpacking in Europe. I think my favorite moment in this episode, because I don't have a lot left that other than like the plot is good, is when they are in the graveyard, realizing that the conspiracy is probably real because the body's no longer there. It is.
Yeah, it's like a
It's
chimpanzee
5:07 in the morning, which is a great time to set that scene. We know that because of the setting card, and they're like giggling, like they're laughing because they realize like, oh god, this is real. Oh man, and they're just the laughter between the two of them, the chemistry there.
Oh, when they crack up
It's
laughing
pouring
in like
rain
the
at 5 in the
pouring
morning, and they're
rain.
realizing, oh my god, we're so
Oh,
fucked.
that's so
You can't
good.
ask for a better like that. That's another one of those things. It's like how you wrote this. Like, oh my god.
That's when they figure out that it's the kid who was
Yes.
in a coma
Yeah.
who was like killing everybody or whatever.
And just figuring that out, I'm like, oh boy, this is a lot, and the affection between them there is really good too. And then they find the bad guy. His dad tries to knock out Scully while they investigate. Billy's shirtless in the woods, and he has the marks on his back, and he gets whisked away in a flash of light. Brought in for questioning later. He describes everything that happened. Basically, was brought in like after graduation, was like going out into the woods with some friends from school, got drunk, and then like got abducted, and ever since then has been like occasionally like losing track of himself as he does all these horrible things and doesn't realize it. There isn't a lot of evidence though, so everyone's like, I guess we're just gonna close the case because we can't do anything with this, but he's also not like legally this is really weird. So but obviously Mulder and Scully are like, that's clearly a huge issue that we just watched happen. Let's check the case file. And then Mulder's like, they burned the case file. There's no case file. It's all gone. And all the evidence that
gone.
Scully brought to her superiors, being like, here's the state of the case. She's like, here's the evidence. It's definitely perfect. And they're like, great, thank you. We see at the end of the episode, the smoking man takes that he's in the Pentagon, and he goes to the scene from the end of Indiana Jones with the crates in the warehouse. He basically goes to that room, stores the evidence away once and for all to never be seen again. Deeply fucked up and spooky. I love it.
It's fiction. It's made up.
I was bummed that
It's fiction. They made it up. Wow.
They made it up. I was bummed. That scene gives you something to latch onto in terms of Scully's character. I was bummed that she like didn't tell Mulder about this little implant thing and gave it to them, and so I'd be excited to watch her realize that like her higher ups there's something up with those guys. Yeah, because it seems like she still buys into like they are gonna tell her what to do in a way that's right.
She still wants to be the good FBI agent.
Yeah.
He's willing to like,
Right.
I don't know if they explain it after, but like you have to wonder like if they don't want him looking at this stuff, like they're supposed to assign him for specific cases in the first place. Like he just got free time to just inspect and investigate any case that's technically already been opened by a different FBI agent and then closed, and he goes back and does it again. Like, and any sort of you work in government there, Alan, I'm sure there's like you charge your time based on what projects you're working on. Like what project is he on?
Right. Who's cutting this guy's checks? What
department is he belong to? Does he not have a manager? There's got to be something. So
yeah, it's very
yeah. And why don't they? I don't know if they're trying to cover up aliens. Why don't the aliens just kill him too? Like that'd be pretty easy.
This movie with Julianne Moore, and just like everyone forgets that she had a kid. Her kids disappeared, but she still remembers she had a kid. And then
is that Changeling?
No, that's the different one. But it's like and then it's like eventually like everyone eventually forgets about it. She forgets about it, and you finally realize it's like there's aliens. They're messing with people on purpose, including her. They're trying to they're like almost trying to prove a point that if you erase her memory, she can eventually forget her own kid. But then the very end, which is like she can still remember the feeling of being pregnant, so she knows that she had a kid, even with
Yikes!
But there's the whole thing of the aliens are all powerful; they can do whatever they want. So literally, the human agents are just trying to contain the damage of it. Right. So you kind of say like, well, if they just wanted to, they could just kill Mulder. But like, now you have to wonder how much who's really in control. You know, like the guys who were having Scully work. How much did they actually know? How much did they think they know? And how much
the movie, by the way, Nick, is
Right,
The Forgotten.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, it's a decent enough film.
I think to ponder that question though, maybe it's like Visitors from Down the Street pauses, which is like people being curious about this and being shut down and being told they're crazy is more productive and useful for us than this getting. It'll never actually get out, so let's just keep them alive and keep them guessing, and then it'll stay contained forever.
What's that thing where like people will hire a hacker to intentionally try to break in to expose the security flaws?
Hackathons.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, we're not going to hire somebody, but we are going to employ a crazy man in the FBI and let him expose the stuff. Just so he'll collect all that evidence for us, and then we destroy it, and then destroy it.
Okay.
He'll take all the evidence in, and then we'll just nuke it.
That makes sense.
Easy. He does our job for us.
Yeah.
That's my guess. But yeah, that's the X-Files, unless anyone had any stray notes.
No.
No, that's all I got. So we should talk about whether it's chatsable, right?
We should do that.
It's too long, right?
I mean, it's too long.
It's too long, and it probably gets super bad.
Right. I mean,
here's a thought I had. Here's a thought I had. This is unprecedented in chats. Would we ever consider, if a show is so universally maligned after a certain point, would we ever consider chatsing it normally up to that point and then like just binging the end of it?
I think that's
but
a fine idea.
I guess the question is, how do you define that point? Because you are still dealing with, it's not, it is still, how many episodes are, it's like, that usual 22 or 24 episodes a season.
It's like over 200.
And they're 45-minute long. So it's a, if you're going for like at least the first 7 seasons, maybe, up until the point where Duchovny kind of went from from starring to just occasionally appearing.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? He's like not in a lot of the show. Yeah.
The last couple of seasons, it's what's the guy's name? The guy who played the T-1000 in Terminator 2 was Magellan still.
Robert Englund? No, not Robert Englund.
Magellan knows how I'm talking about because he was in Terminator 2 if you haven't seen. But yeah, so they gotta just brought somebody else in and
Robert Patrick.
I'll be back, right, guys? Love that movie.
But yeah, so it changed obviously near the end. The spin-off show, I feel like when the spin-off show happened, that was around that time where it was peaking. When did that happen? I gotta check it out. But it is very hard to know what point. When do you kind of say, okay, this is the tipping point? It's not like there was a change in showrunners. You can say, oh, because when this showrunner took over, that's when it dramatically changed. No, it's Chris Carter all the way through.
The Lone Gunman, by the way, is that's the show, the side show you're talking about. That's 2001. Yeah. So I don't know where that puts us in X-Files season time, but people who will watch more of the X-Files, tell us maybe what you think is the point.
7th season, maybe, or so.
Yeah. It's probably around 7 seasons. Tell us where you think one would theoretically end their X-Files watch. But I mean, because then we could consider it. But I mean, length is important because it's for us and it's for the listener. Like how many X-Files podcasts have you listened to, and like do they all go through all of it? Do they stop? Because I believe the X-Files files didn't do all of it, right?
No, they didn't. They kind of is defunct.
They got busy also.
And they jumped around.
And I mean, I think the movie happened. I want to say like maybe the 4th season or something like that. And the movie was good. I enjoyed the movie. They did a one years later that I didn't see that one, but the original movie, it fit nicely. It didn't contradict it. It did add to the background story. It was like a good episode. So even that kind of helps us in it, like just like maybe the season after the movie and stuff like that.
Oh man, it's funny because the way that their careers work, David Duchovny not in as much stuff these days, but Gillian Anderson in a lot of stuff these days.
When she dyes her hair blonde, she suddenly becomes English.
Right. She transforms.
No,
Yeah,
but
she's in a lot of TV
she's
shows.
lived in England. She's married. Her husband's English. Like she's fully gone native. It works that way.
She has an accent?
She can. It's like one of those things where she's so comfortable talking, whether it's because she's an actress or not. I'm not sure, but she's so comfortable. Like she's lived in England for
Yeah.
many years now. And her husband's that, so she just speaks like them now, and then she can
Right.
switch back. It's like this sort of actress, and she does the same thing. There's like she talked about she's from England, and then she moved to the United States when she was a kid, and then she spoke with an American accent because she wanted to fit in. And
That's pretty
now
common, but yeah.
yeah, so she could just fit in. They can switch back and forth. They don't feel comfortable both ways. So whether or not what's their real accent, I guess is up for debate. But yeah, so she's obviously she's had more success. But I think she also it felt like she took a good break, and then she just started to do more things recently. Maybe her kids graduated high school and went to college.
Her kids are her first child is at my age.
There you go.
Which makes me feel really weird. I was curious, my last thing, how old are Mulder and Scully supposed to be in this? Because they're flirting and acting like adults in a way that suggests that they're adults.
I mean,
But not that old.
I mean,
Well,
But I
they're
mean,
not
like, they're not
kids.
like
What do you
20-somethings.
mean?
I think they're
not
in their
like
30s, probably.
no, she's definitely in her 20s because I mean she is herself in 20s at that point. But they
Yeah.
talked about she finished medical school and then she applied. Now she's in the FBI, but I don't get the impression that she's been in there for very long.
Yeah. So she's probably in her late 20s, and then he's maybe a little bit older because he's like written this big book.
He's
or
developed a
whatever
reputation
thing he wrote.
in the academy. He's got enough of a reputation that in the academy they still talk about him as Spooky Mulder.
Right.
I mean,
The best-
honestly, talking to him there, if he didn't have proof to back it up, real things to see, the way he talks like a crazy person. So I understand why people are going to say, well, he's a spooky guy.
Spooky Mulder.
Oh, Jesus,
I'm not
this
a
spooky
fan
Mulder.
of spooky behavior.
Oh, Zach Gallen showing up
Yeah,
out of
whoa.
nowhere. What a conspiracy.
Wait, I got this pizza. Can you smell it?
Coming back
My
just very
other
quickly
last
to the
thing-
last, the strangers from down the street or whatever it's called. How crazy is it the idea of a telepath projecting stuff in your head if you've never even had the concept of a telepath? Like for us,
Oh, God.
if we met an actual telepath and they did something, and we're like, oh shoot, that was like in that science fiction. I have a concept for what it is, even if I don't understand how it works in real life. But for them, maybe he's like, he was very calm, like, sorry, I know it's really, first half of the episode, but he goes, don't you stay out of my mind, it's like, don't do that again. And so it's like, so do they have telepaths? Maybe.
Or maybe he just researched it and knows that humans have them through his research. So he's like, I've read about this.
Well, but that would be crazy if he was like, not only are you like controlling our world, but you
Yes.
can also do
Oh,
that.
even more crazy.
Oh,
even more
God.
paranoid.
True.
They can
Oh,
wipe your
that's
mind. They can control
scary.
your minds from a distance now. Oh, jeez.
The real crazy thing
Yeah.
is that in this X-Files episode, they take a plane to Oregon, and Mulder lies down
Oh,
on 3 airplane seats.
I forgot.
And
What the fuck?
I the thing I put that about that was
So he bought multiple seats. Is that
I
what
guess
he did?
maybe
that
maybe
what's
his
going on?
budget, like the X-Files department that he works in the basement, is staffed by 10 people that don't exist, and that way he has more budget. Like he's just now he's just committing fraud. But the craziest thing I thought when I saw that was not just that he had 3 seats to lie down. I was like, man, that is really brave to put your head on the aisle. Like that's just
On
going to
the
get a
aisle?
cart. You're going to get a cart in the head very quickly.
Yeah,
Probably on
right.
purpose too, because they'd be like, "Oops, sorry." Yeah,
Sorry.
passive aggressive hit. Yeah, he's
But
he's
just
a,
the
he's a
pre-
loose
the
cannon, that
9/11
Mulder. Oh.
Yeah, the pre-9/11ness of just the guy being like, I'm just lounging on this whole 3 seats on a plane and no one cares. And then they experience turbulence and
Yeah.
everyone's like, that was weird. Anyways. And it's like these rich red leather plane seats. And I'm like, I will never be on a plane like this in my life. But
Yeah.
alas.
I only flew
Yeah.
once in the 90s as a kid, and I don't remember those seats. But maybe I'm happy I don't.
Maybe. Yeah, so I think that brings us to the end of our X-Files discussion for now. Do-do-do-do-we.
Yeah, I mean, do we? So our determination is that we don't know, because I'd love to be able to just watch the X-Files.
Yeah,
More
I mean,
like right now.
because I had, like I said, I hadn't sat down and
probably
really watched it for quite a while. I think I bit torn it a decade or so ago, and it was really crappy quality. And I was like, oh no, this looks terrible. I mean, the show was really bad. And I was like, okay, I understand it was, probably someone ripped it from a VHS copy or something like that.
Yeah.
But then now for this, and it's like, I just bought the first season on Google in HD. I'm like, this looks great. I know. I definitely am not going to be burdened by, oh man, this is bad quality video. The special effects are just so badly transferred and like that. No, it's a good scaling version. So,
yeah, at least
I kind of just want to fall asleep
no
to the
lights on.
X-Files every night. You don't
I know. I mean,
watch
that's like
man,
the
you're
way.
not gonna don't. There's some really creepy episodes. You don't want to fall asleep to.
Oh, it gets spooky.
There's a cockroach episode that still unnerves me.
Bye.
No, thank you. No, thank you. One time I woke up with a cockroach on my face, so that would make me think of my own life.
Okay, it's not going to spoil the episode, but the part that was genius about that particular episode was at one point, because there's stuff going on with cockroaches, but there's one point that they animated a cockroach going across the screen, like not in the scene, right?
Yuck.
Enough for the
Fuck
audience to
that.
go, the fuck? There's a cockroach. Like,
Nope. No.
It was like
It's on your TV. That's hilarious.
yeah, they
but
did
also
it so
no.
it looked like you're watching it. You're watching it at night, and with the lights off, or whatever. You speak out already, and the cockroach goes. They're not reacting to it. That's on my TV. What that? What?
Oh my god!
Can I just find a clip of that scene?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Ew, I found it. Ooh, I hate it. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm never watching the X-Files anymore. Sorry. No, but I think because I had the first episode paused overnight when I watched half of it, and my computer overnight unpaused it for some reason, and I woke up this morning 6 a.m. or whatever, and I just looked down and it's on episode 7 or something, and I'm like, what? The X-Files? What's going on? I don't recognize any of it. I couldn't see what episode it was for a while.
This is an unexplained
Yeah,
phenomenon.
exactly. This is a job for the X-Files.
That presents an interesting theory. Were you subliminally learning the episodes in your sleep just from it playing in the background? If we did some sort of hypnosis, could you recall those memories?
I could, from verbatim.
Okay, that's your next chat's night.
Deep hypnosis.
Alan tries hypnosis.
Hypnosis, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Um,
So there's lots of supplementary material that could happen in an X-Files based chat season,
True.
we got movies. We got a spin-off show. We got 2 spin-off shows?
Well, there's 2 movies.
2 movies.
There's the spin-off show, and then there's the 2 final seasons.
And then there's
that
the
they did more
reboot.
recently, after that. One was almost like a mini-series, and then the one was actually a longer season, I think. But what I read was about the end of that last season, that last one. A lot of people really didn't like the ending. Even the original ending of the original series that had that people said they didn't like some parts of it. The end of the most recent season, people didn't like. Yes. So that didn't really engross me to go check out those ones. I'll just watch the original stuff, see Monsters of the Week and other alien abductions.
Sorry, in Googling the cockroach thing, I found an old Google... I think this is a Usenet forum where someone said, on tonight's X-Files episode, did anyone else notice a cockroach crawl towards the right side of the screen?
There you go.
That's bananas.
Yeah, it totally got me when it happened. That was very much
really
convinced.
awesome.
Yeah.
Magellan, can you do me a big favor, my friend?
I would love to do you a big favor, my friend.
Tell me what we're watching next week on Crusade Chats.
Yeah, remember the show this is actually about?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. When I went to watch Visitors from Down the Street a second time, I was like, no, wait, I thought I was watching the X-Files now.
Where's Mulder and Scully?
Yeah, come back, my great for new friends. Alan, can you believe that we are over halfway done with Crusade?
Yes, the show's fake.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's exciting.
You're correct. Okay, next week we were watching 2, so we're actually not halfway done then. We're about to be halfway done.
We're nearly halfway done.
Yeah. Next week we're watching 2 more episodes of Crusade. First, we are watching Each Night I Dream of Home, which is episode What episode is it? Episode 13. I had to fully unfold my DVD box set to find the
This is
description
the
of it.
finale of Crusade, technically.
Yeah,
maybe?
next week we're watching the finale of Crusade. Okay. This is gonna excite you.
Okay.
Each Night I Dream of Home. First of all, written by JMS, directed by Stephen First, which is already exciting. And then here's something else exciting for you, my friend. Former Babylon 5 medical officer Dr. Stephen Franklin, played by Richard Biggs, comes to the Excalibur to oversee an experiment that may strike a blow against the Drock plague. But the Drocks strike a blow of their own, launching an attack after the experiment gets underway. So that might be the only plot episode of Crusade. I think we're gonna get just the one. And then
oh my God, shut up, dude! I just looked at the thumbnail for the next one. It's like a crusty caveman-looking dude with braids. Stop! The show's over. It's fake. It's fiction.
Then we're watching Patterns of the Soul, which is episode 5 from disc 2, and the description is as follows: Is the Drock plague spreading? A journey to Theta 49 confirms Earth Command's fear that the planet's colonists carry the incubating virus. Another alarming discovery awaits. Theta's inhabitants were deliberately contaminated.
Oh, sure.
Sure, why not?
Man,
Yeah.
these summaries are so spoilery, really.
I know. It's like the way they're usually formatted is like, could this be a mystery? Here's what the answer is.
Is this Dr. Stephen Franklin? Perhaps it is.
Yes.
Just guest starring Richard Biggs.
Yeah. Also, here's a picture of him with a goatee. Have fun.
Yeah. So
I will
and
have fun.
The funny thing is, again, coming back to previous topics, in that second episode, that group of people that they encounter on the planet, that may or may not be affected, the leader of that group, like that guy, he's been in other science fiction stuff.
The leader of the group is Tracy Scoggins.
No, but it's the dude is like, I'm gonna say he was in other stuff, but I knew him so much as one particular character on the X-Files. So whenever I did watch
that's
Crusade,
funny.
and that episode did happen, I was like, oh, he's that dude from X-Files. Like, that's what I first thought of. So just it's all coming together.
And each night I dream of sorrows. We're gonna have another guest on because it's guest season, baby. We need more people to talk about Crusade with us.
Each Night I Dream of Home.
Each night I dream of. You could make a bot that just makes Babylon 5 / Crusade episodes with different terms.
Title generator.
Yeah.
It's Benedict Cumberbatch generator.
Oh, yeah.
Racing the needs of Earth and other deceits.
The
The rules of the memory of war. The long war zone. A call to the path of sorrow. They all just kind of fart into each other.
Yeah.
Ugh, I love it. Cool, Majan. Let's take it to the plug zone.
Let's do
Plug
it.
it in.
Let's do it. Can I do it?
Yes, you can.
All right. We love you all. You're all great.
Wow. Wow.
If you'd like to get in contact with the show, there are a number of ways to do that, to share your questions, comments, feedback, thoughts, suggestions, any and all nouns that you would like to use as the sort of rubric for your words. You can share those with us in a number of ways. First, you can send us electronic mail at chatspod@gmail.com. That is spelled CHATZPOD @gmail.com. You can also, we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/chatspod. You can direct message us there, slide into the DMs, as they say. And we also, we'll tweet some jokes or retweet some jokes or things related to shows we've watched. And people reply to us. It's a nice little spot. So you should add us to your Twitter if you've got Twitter. And then, if you would like to support the show, we would encourage you to head on over to patreon.com/chatspod, where you can support at a number of different tiers. You can pay $1 a month, and paying $1 a month gets you access to monthly movie commentary chats. $3 a month gets you access to Chats Nights, which is our bi-weekly hangout show where we talk about whatever we feel like. And then $5 a month gets you all of that plus pilot chats, where we do what we just did with the X-Files, but with other shows. So I believe the thing that came out yesterday was the Chats Nights, where Alan and I just found some conversation starting questions and talked about them and had a nice time. And then next Saturday, you'll be able to hear our Pilot Chats discussion of X-Men Evolution. So if you're into X-Men like we are, that is going to be pretty fun.
It's true.
Yeah. And now we can head into we don't do personal plugs, but we do chatsums, little suggestions, little snackerinos, things to chew on between now and the next time you're with us. So, Nick, you're our guest. So if you'd like, you can go first. And if you have any personal plugs also, now's the time to share those as well.
So I'm not going to pull any sort of surprises like last time and say like I made a Discord server because I didn't do that. I got lazy. I'll stick with Reddit. But I'll go ahead and plug is the John Mulaney Sack Lunch Bunch special on Netflix.
Ooh.
Oh, is that good?
I liked it a lot. It was super silly. I first started watching it with my kids because I'm like, no, I'm going to try this. It's built as if it's like a 80s, early 90s, kids program, and like with all these interesting celebrity appearances and musical numbers and stuff like that. But it's
nice.
It's definitely his style of humor, and if you like it, I think you'll get into it. But
good.
My wife was just like listening to it from the other room, and it's breaking into a song about grandma's got a new boyfriend. Like they're talking about just the weirdest of topics. But it's so both sincere and obviously there's some scripting aspects to it, but it's too fun. I highly recommend it.
Huh.
It looks weird,
Fabulous.
so that's why I feel like I'll recommend it. Because
Yeah.
if you passed over, that looks weird. I'm not gonna watch it. Give it a
Yeah,
try.
I've been trying to figure out if it's good because I love John Mulaney and that's tipping me over the edge. So I'll definitely watch it.
Same.
Yeah. Alan, should we tell Nick
What about the secret thing that we made?
Yeah.
I don't know if we should tell him on the podcast. Should we tell him on the podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you just made a joke about it, so I feel like we have to say we have made a Discord server, and we're
many
going.
episodes, you made a comment about it, and it didn't happen. So
Oh,
Yeah,
it's existing.
It exists. We just haven't rolled it out into existence. So shortly, I don't know how soon, but if you're a patron, you'll soon have access to the Discord server.
The Patreon Discord.
we'll talk
It's
more about
you could
that.
say it's in beta right now. We'll
Yeah, it's just me and Alan. We're beta testing it, and then
we don't know how permissions work. We don't know how anything works.
we'll roll it into an open beta pretty soon.
Yeah, fabulous.
But it exists. Alan, what about you? You got Chatsum?
I do have a chatsum, sir dear.
Dear.
So this anime season, I had heard a lot of good things about all these different shows. Everyone's like, this one's going to come to Netflix soon, and this one's new, and it's really good. And I wanted to go for the most straightforward one, because I don't usually follow the current season of anime unless it's My Hero Academia, which is also good this season, but it might be wrapping up soon. But regardless, that's not my chatsum. My chatsum for this week is another anime from this season called Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, which is currently, as of this recording, 2 episodes in. It's an anime from the Science Saru Studios, who people might recognize from a lot of amazing anime. Devilman Crybaby from 2018. Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is a beautiful anime film from 2017. And they have this really specific, it barely looks like anime almost. Just a truly, truly stunning art style that is very, very colorful and unique, and everyone has distinct body shapes and voices and style. I love all of their anime, and this new one, Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, is about 3 girls in high school who are really passionate about anime, and they want to start an anime club at their school, but they're not allowed to, so they have to call it a live action film club because there's already an anime club. And there's one who's like, I really want to draw, but all I know how to do is ideas. One of them is like, I know how to draw, but I don't have ideas. And the other one is like, I know how to make money off of this. And it's a comedy. I would actually say the closest Western contemporary thing with it is, believe it or not, Ed, Edd and Eddy. because
Okay.
their like size and character dynamics are pretty similar to those guys, but also they do this brilliant thing that when it happens, you'll like seriously have your mind blown, where they're talking about like, oh, I want to do this thing where there's like hills and this guy is flying on a plane. And then as they're telling the story, one of them is jumping into a plane and flying around, and you're getting like these richly, stunningly animated scenes of their imagination gone wild. And like floating in and out of imagination and real and back into the real world and that whole thing. Managing to be just really beautiful and like not it's not dark in any way. It's definitely like a fun, lighthearted comedy, but it's incredibly beautiful and very much worth your time, even just to look at, because they put it's a very it looks very expensive, honestly.
Is that on Crunchyroll, or are you watching it somewhere else?
It is. It's actually licensed by Crunchyroll, so they have exclusive rights to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely check it out.
Better chances that it'll be Canada Crunchyroll than too. Awesome.
Right. Eizouken spelled Eizouken. It's one of like the top ones this season, so you can find it easily.
Nice.
But yeah, check those out. Little snack items for you. And thank you, Nick, for joining us again on on a very chunky episode of Chatzylon 5.
Yeah, my Chatsum is grape soda. Sorry. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Oh my God, Magellan, I didn't ask you. Magellan, what's your chat?
That's all I was gonna say. Just
is it really grape soda?
Yeah, I'm just looking around at sort of the refuse of the dinner that I ordered today, and the part I was most pleased with was the grape soda. So,
what's your favorite grape soda? What's like brand?
Well, this one's half-eaten Chinese takeout and grape soda.
Yeah, it's General Tso's chicken. No, it's I got pizza and some fried calamari, but I think I may have done fried calamari before, and I've definitely done pizza before. So, what with grape soda?
All that's left is grape soda. 3 weeks later, hey guys, so my Chatsum is plates, plastic, glass.
My Chatsum is the trash corner where trash is in the room.
Really make sure your trash gets separated. But John, you're my favorite human.
Week 1 was go for a walk. Week 2, clean plates. Week 3, paper plates. Oh no. Week 4.
Week 4, move to a new apartment. This one's full of trash.
Week 10. See my appearance on what is some TLC reality show about like holders or something?
Yeah. Right. Week 11, receive an intervention.
Week 12, help.
Yeah.
This week my Chatsum is help me, help.
Grape soda is good though. Think about the last time you had it, everybody. And if it's been a while, go get one. Orange soda is good too. Orange soda is also good.
It's going to be hit or miss because it depends on where you grew up. Because, like, for example, my wife, she's from Brazil, and there's a lot more cane sugar stuff. And so then she gets, like, a Fanta, orange soda, grape soda.
Oh, right.
It's terrible. She can't take it. So, yeah. In general, if you're not picky, it's great.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Indeed. Sorry about that, John. I genuinely...
No, it's okay. I almost was going to let you do it because I really had nothing.
I was thinking, what was his It's not my show. I shouldn't interject.
Okay. Thank you, Magellan, for being the rock to my hard place, and thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.
Bye.